Yeah, before you buy the ring, there are serious conversations you guys need to have. So I'm just gonna help you walk through some of them and go and discuss them with your spouse because they are very important. And once you settle that, then you can buy the ring. But before that, let's go into the video so that we can have that conversation. So we want to talk and clarify so that we can avoid conflict for tomorrow. We would rather have clarity because you know what, we're building a relationship, a marriage here, and it has to work, right? There are conversations that are so hard that couples do not discuss. This is Love and Truth, where we talk about truth and honesty in terms of relationship. So the first conversation you guys need to talk about is conversation on finances. Last video that I posted on signs to know that you're ready for marriage, before you say I do, I talked about it, but I brushed on top of it. But this is now a conversation that you need to have. How much do you earn as an individual and how much does the other person earn? Make sure that that is straight put on the table because it will determine a lot of things, right? Knowing the amount of money you have will determine, number one, the kind of lifestyle you will have. Because if both of you are earning below 50,000, that means as a home you are having probably less than 100,000. It will determine where you will live. It will determine the kind of life you will get because of course you're working within your budget so that you don't strain. So if you're in business, you can also be in a place where you're actually having conversations on like roughly how much do you get, how much do you get in a week, in a day, so that you can actually do the budgets as well. The other thing is, how do you save? Have you practiced the principles of saving? If not, can it be something that you're beginning? Make sure that you have a conversation even on the debts so that you can also plan together how long had you been given to repay, so that we can also factor in that particular expense in our resources as we are talking about the amount of money that is coming in. Marriage requires honesty about money because if you don't have that honesty, then it's going to be a challenge. I know that there are men who are very skeptical and they don't tell people, their wives, how much they earn because they feel like as long as I am providing, as long as you are not lacking, don't ask me such questions. But it's very important because remember, you guys are a team, you're working together, you will be working together as partners, and that requires you to actually have that conversation. So even if you're in marriage and probably you never had that conversation, it would be a good place to begin and just talk about it. And then from there, as a lady, see what can I offset. If there's anything I can offset, if I can't, can I help you probably limiting the expenses in the house so that you can be able probably to pay debts, and just so that we have a comfortable life without really frustrating this other person. The other conversation you are supposed to have is the conversation of faith and spiritual direction. Are you aligned spiritually? If you are, for example, I can say I'm born again. You might say you're a Christian, but you're going to a different denomination altogether. There's a Catholic and then there's a Protestant. These two people have different ways of worshiping God, of loving God, and even of prayer. So if you guys are coming from that place, then again, it can be a challenge before you find your footing, because you will find that on Sunday, this one is going to their Catholic church, this other one is going to their Protestant church. Now, the problem comes in the house because this Protestant is praying in tongues and making noise, but this Catholic person is wondering, why are you making noise? Because they're not used to that, right? So it can be a challenge. So you guys need to talk about such things and make sure that you're aligned spiritually. Do you want to raise your family in the same belief? I have seen Christians who are marrying Muslims, and especially Muslim men. They will actually allow you to continue going to church, but they will tell you upfront the children will be Islam. So while you're agreeing to marry them, you might actually disagree to change your faith, but for them, they've already stated all their children will be Muslim like them, right? I don't know if the ladies that are Muslims, when they marry Christian men, they also give the same ultimatums. All I know is friends of mine that I know that were Christians and they wanted to marry Muslim men, and because they did not want to change their faith, and the Muslim men did not also want to change from Muslim to Christianity, so they agreed everyone to stay in their faith, do things their own way, but the children, every other relationship I have seen of a Christian lady with a Muslim man is that the children become Muslims. So depending on the kind of beliefs you are, those are things that you need to also have a conversation concerning, right? So these differences really matter because they determine how you guys will be doing things, how you will be believing God together, for example. Because I tend to believe that we cannot achieve a lot if God is not in the picture, because He gives us grace, right? The principles that probably I am applying in my marriage are coming from the Bible because that is what I read. So if I have someone who does not believe in the word of God, then that can be very difficult even to form some of the beliefs and also some of the values that we need to actually follow through. So it's very important to actually have a conversation concerning that. The other conversation is about childhood and family expectations. You need to discuss how you were raised and how you want to raise your children, because your childhood also shapes how you love. A lot of us have a lot of childhood traumas. Our parents were never present. They were so busy, especially our fathers, just going out there looking for money, making sure that we are sorted, that they were never present. So we did not have father figures. We were raised by our mothers, and that can have a lot of challenge on how this person grows up to be, because we tend to believe, especially if you have been raised in such a home as a man, as a boy, and now you're a man, you will believe that that is what provision and marriage looks like, and that is how you will tend to do things. So it can really affect how you also relate with your family, because your childhood shapes who you are and it shapes how you love your partner. So make sure you have that conversation. Yes, that is how probably it was in your home, but now because you want to begin a new home here, can you change? Is it something that we can actually work on and be like, you know what, you don't have to go and slave all day. You don't have to go very early and come very late because you're the only one providing. Because as a woman, I will also have I will also input on the finances, so you don't have to carry the burden alone, and that means you will have time for the children as well, so that they know that they have a present father who is loving and caring, as much as that is not what you got. And then as a spouse who is having someone who has challenges from childhood traumas, you can actually walk with them through that journey, so that you make sure that they are doing the best. Especially if you know what love is and how to love right, you can actually help them to understand. Because as I've said again, you might have childhood traumas that affect your love languages, but innately you also have a love language. Naturally, teach your spouse how to love you the way you want to be loved, not the way they assume love should be. The other conversation you need to have is a conversation of children. There are ladies who do not want to have more than 2 kids because they're like, I cannot carry so many children. I cannot be in a place where I'm giving birth all the time. Also because probably of the type of career they want to pursue. It is about, do you even want kids in the first place? Let's start there. Yes. How many, right? And how possible is that? And then talk about parenting styles. What works for the two of you, or what do you prefer for us to do, and what do you admire? Then shape that, and then now know that by the way, if we have kids, this is how we are raising them, because this is something that we actually discussed before the children come. Because if you now start to do this after the children are there will be a lot of chaos, right? And if you are going to learn with the firstborn that this is now how we should learn, and you did not talk about it, the firstborn will actually go through a lot of confusion and a lot of pain, because hey, you are learning with him or her instead of having preset values that you can actually apply. And of course, children are different, so the parenting styles and probably the way they behave and you nurture them is different. But then make sure that at least there's a parenting style that is there for all the children, so they feel equal. They don't feel like one received more love than the other and all that. The other conversation you need to have is conflict resolution. How do you argue, right? Are we supposed to be shouting concerning something that we're talking about? Are we supposed to raise our voices, or can I just argue by the way silently and telling you, you know what, I don't agree with you because what you're saying does not make sense? And is it okay for even me to challenge you as a wife or as a husband? Is it allowed? Do I shout? Do I walk away? Do I go silent? Are we going to deal with this? And when that happens, right? Because probably probably whatever has been said to you, done to you, is something that you don't want to deal right now. Are you in a place where you have what we talked about last week, emotional intelligence and emotional discipline, where you are willing to be like, you know what, I know that whatever is happening, by the way, is a fault that happened. Probably we did not agree on one or two things, but I will, let's pause and talk about this thing later when I am not as hurt, because right now that I'm hurt, I will say, do, or behave in a manner that is very bad. And you know, once you have already done or said something, some words, as much as you will say sorry, sorry can't heal whatever you have broken. So it's easier to just say, let's pause, right? When we have an issue, instead of going silent, let's also try and sit down and talk about some of these challenges instead of going silent, right? Understanding this prevents emotional damage, which is what we are trying to prevent. The other conversation you guys need to have is career goals. Will your career support or sustain your home? Because I know that there are people who are together, probably before you marry, you're doing casual jobs and they're working for you, because you're, as a single person, it's working. You're in a single room, the amount of money you're getting is enough to sort you, it's enough to buy your second-hand clothes, is enough to sustain your food, or sometimes you maneuver and just go and probably eat at your friends and then come sleep. But now someone else is coming into the picture, and you need to be aware that, by the way, you know what, if as a lady you probably don't cook, right? So all these things are things that you need to talk about. So in terms of career goals, some of us will have to change our careers, or we will have to like grow and become better so that we get more resources, or we branch out. Are you both willing to adjust when needed? That is something that you guys need to talk, even when it comes to career, right? Because there is a point and time when the lady probably goes for maternity. We have offices where when they go for maternity, they can actually be expandable and they are replaced permanently. So because that is bound to happen, are you willing to adjust to cater while the person is nursing and taking care of the children, and then you can catch up later, and as you guys learn to work things together. The other conversation you're supposed to have is the roles in marriage, because all of us have different roles. What does teamwork look like for you? Because we're coming in as a team to make this marriage work. Who handles what? Like the man, I'm gonna take care of the house, I'm gonna take care of the food. So you as the lady, you can take care of the small bills. The other conversation you need to talk about is health issues. You need to tell us emotionally, mentally, and physically, and you be honest about if you have challenges, right? Secrets here can actually break trust later. I know that there are things that you don't want to tell them immediately, but create an open space where you can actually even talk about it later, and be and do it in love. The other conversation you need to talk about is boundaries. How far is too far for every one of us? I know we are getting into marriage, and marriages is very important actually to create boundaries, because you need to create boundaries with your friends, you need to create boundaries with your exes, you need to create boundaries with family. And healthy boundaries are very important because they create safety for your partner who is joining you, so you can shield them. You can also set boundaries for the two of you. I know that marriage is a place where we are supposed to be free and open with one another, but I tend to feel like sometimes we have our own personal boundaries that are needed to be enforced in the relationship, because once they are broken, or every other time they are surpassed, zikipitwa, you feel bad, right? And this is a person you will relate with until you die, so you would rather tell them so that they don't offend you all the time, right? So if you also have your own personal boundaries, and I'm talking boundaries even in sex, because there are times your partner will tell you to try crazy styles, and for you, you're like, no, I don't feel like it. Or they tell you to just do something that you don't feel like it's something that you ought to do. Just because you guys are partners doesn't mean I need to just bend and do whatever it is that you want to do. So make sure that as a couple, you discuss even some of these things, because they're very important. As much as it is okay to explore together, it is okay for you to do things together and to compromise for the other, don't allow yourself again to disappear in the process of compromise for for the other person. It is important for you to have your own space and just have your own way of thinking, and that which is also important. The last conversation you're going to have to discuss is lifestyle vision. Okay, where do you want to live? Alignment brings peace, which is very important, and it's something that you want. Couples who talk deeply love deeply, and it is very important to have this. So which conversation do you need to have first? Let me know in the comment sections. And if you have already probably had some of the conversations, how was it like? Was it helpful? And yeah, so if you also are in a place where you want to have these conversations, please don't make it look spooky. Have them and be very honest and discuss, even as we are talking on the journey towards marriage. See you next time. Bye bye.